Alright, everybody, I got a super fun budget deck for you here, and probably one of my favorite color combos is it, which is blue-red. We're working with Agar, the Freezing Flame. He's a 3/3 giant wizard for one colorless, one blue, and one red. And whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent's control is dealt damage or excess damage by a giant, wizard, or spell you control, you get to draw a card. So all of our burn spells are guard advantage, which is gross. If you just staple draw a card onto any removal spell, it'd be one of the most busted things you could attach to that for no extra cost. The goal of this deck was to be, when I built it, the purpose of this deck was to just have a commander deck that I truly could take somewhere, maybe like leave in my car, just always have. But like, if the worst case happened that something happened to it, I wouldn't be out an extraordinary amount of money in cards. So this deck right now costs $23.71. But excluding the basic lands, because I think I have some fancy lands in here. Because I like, when I build decks on here, I like to pick like thematic fancy lands for the full art basics and things. But the original, when I bought this deck, it was just shy of $30, including shipping from manapool.com. So it was just, this is going to upset so many people, and that's okay, because it does actually bother me a little bit too, so I understand you. The other point of this deck was to be hyper budget, no sleeves. I'm never going to put any card from this deck in a sleeve. And I also built a ridiculous deck box for it on here now, using just pieces of, as you can see, a Dr. Pepper Zero 12-pack, and some packing tape. And that's it. It works better than it should. I have since cut the top off, the sides a bit, so that it folds down. And I'm trying to figure out a fun way to easily have that like stay closed, but I'm not sure. But it's redonkulous, but I love it. So $30 total for the whole deck. And I guess the price of a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper Zero, if you really want to factor that in, but with how little of the box I used, I don't think that counts. So the whole deal of the deck is Giants Matter. As you can tell by the title of the deck, they are giants. It's true. I think all but 2 of your creatures are giants in this deck. And the only reason they aren't giants is because I think they're both goblins that have giant support. So there's that. Goblins love one thing, and that is anything bigger than them, because if they can make it happy, they won't kill them. That's generally their game plan. I love goblins and Magic. I don't remember if it has more than one video up about goblins, but Spice 8 Rack has an incredible video about goblins, and they love goblins as much as they deserve to be loved in Magic. So let's go over the things in here that are giant centric. So we got the Battle of Frost and Fire, which is 3 colorless, a blue and a red. It deals 4 damage to each non-giant creature and each planeswalker. So an important note for Agar's ability is it's not stapled to 1 or more or once per turn. So if you slam Battle of Frost and Fire and you wipe the board of a bunch of weenie tokens, You could deck yourself. Be careful. Is it May draw a card? No, it's draw a card. So yeah, be careful. But even if you wipe away a reasonable board, you could spend 5 mana to wipe the board. That's not even kind of the other chapters that could pop up and get maybe like 2 to 3 cards off of it, which is ridiculous for a board wipe. If it draws you anything, it's silly. The next chapter lets you scry 3. And then the third chapter is whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater this turn, you draw 2 cards and discard a card. And that is, I don't have the other one in here that is just like high converted mana cost centric. There's a couple of them in the deck. Because they don't say giant on the card, but they're functionally Giants matters because Giants tend to cost a lot of mana. I was originally going to build this as a Pauper commander, which I'm sure Agar's a killer Pauper commander. But there are so many dirt cheap, rare giant payoffs that just seem sick. And I think this deck's a lot of fun, and a lot of these do a lot of crazy stuff for cheap money and mana because they're giant specific. Like Calamity Bearer. If a giant source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Just a 4-mana 3/4. It's so good. An easy way to just ensure that our removal is gonna draw us a card when it hits. Crush Underfoot is one of our 4 types of removal. I'll get to, probably should have done that first. It's fine. I'll get to those in a little bit after we get done with the Giants Matter stuff. And then I'll talk about the 4 types of excess damage we're working out. But this is one of them, which is you choose a giant you control, and it deals damage equal to its power to target creature. And it's a 2-mana instant speed spell, 1 colorless, 1 red. And that's, most giants have anywhere from 3 and up power. Like 7, maybe there's an 8. Like, I'm talking like naturally, like printed on the card. Grant, there are several giants that have like star, asterisk power, or whatever. Cyclone Summoner, 5 colorless, 2 blue for a 7/7 giant wizard. And whenever he enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, return all permanents to their owner's hands except for giants, wizards, and lands. And we don't have many enchantments. We don't run that many artifacts. So this is, for the most part, we have a few ways of mostly, if not completely asymmetrically, wiping the board and rolling in with our big baddies. We got Fire Giant's Fury, which is a 2-mana, colorless, and red sorcery. Target giant you control gets +2/+2 and trample until end of turn. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may exile that many cards from the top of your library until the end of your next turn. You can play them. So this is just, if you it's damage to a player. Yeah. So if you can't really like burn somebody out, but there's an open player at your table, you can slap this on one of your giants, and maybe you've got extra mana to play in your second main phase, but you can set up your next turn to have a bunch of extra cards to have access to. One of my favorite reasons to play this deck, frankly, because I love blue. I do. I'm a dirty blue player. As is evident really by the name of the channel. But Giant's Grasp, which is one of the more efficient ways to steal something, but it's 2 colorless and 2 blue for an enchantment aura, enchant a giant you control, and when Giant's Grasp enters the battlefield, you gain control of target non-land permanent for as long as Giant's Grasp remains on the battlefield. It's fucking anything. Anything. That's so good for 4 mana. Yeah, it's an aura and it's attached to your giant, so you get blown out or whatever. I get that. We have our budget giant soul ring, not soul ring, Swiftfoot boots, whatever, like hexproof equipment, to hopefully like make that better. But I don't know. I love stealing creatures, and that's so funny. We got Glimpse the Cosmos. It's almost my name. We're so close. Still pretty on theme though, which is cute. But it's colorless and blue for sorcery. You can look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest of the bottom of your library in any order. So it's a little fixing. Get the best thing out of the top. But if you control a giant, you can cast this from your graveyard for just a single blue rather than paying its mana cost, and then you exile it. Invasion of the Giants. Blue and a red for another saga. Scry 2 for the first chapter. Then the next chapter is you draw a card. Then you may reveal a giant card from your hand, and when you do, this deals 2 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. It's not great, but it does care about giants. And more importantly, the next giant spell you cast this turn on the last chapter costs 2 less to cast. Big important for making sure we can slam some of these big spells. But don't you worry, we also have several things in here that care about mana value to deal damage or do something. So even if you're not able to drop them, there should be stuff you can do that'll at least care about the mana values you have. Squash is another great piece of tech for giants. I love it. It's 4 colorless and a red for an instant. Costs 3 less to cast if you control a giant, and it deals 6 damage to a creature or planeswalker. Just snipes a guy. And if Agar's out, you're drawing a card for 2 mana. You're killing a creature and drawing a card for 2 mana. And that's frankly not alright. This is one of our goblins, Stink Drinker Daredevil, 2 colorless and a red for a 1/3 goblin rogue. Giant spells cost 2 less. That's pretty dope. You love to see it. Surtland Elementalist, 5 colorless and 2 red. No. I know what colors are. 5 colorless and 2 blue for an 8/8. And as an additional cost to cast this spell, you have to reveal a giant card or pay 2 more. Which arguably I would say isn't worth it. But it is an option if you've got 9 mana to drop it. Whenever Surtland Elementalist attacks, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. Though I gotta say, unless you're cheating it in with some of your giant enablers, if you're hard casting this, you probably don't need it, but it lets you cast multiple spells that are big in one turn, and that should be gross. That should get stuff done. Surtland Flinger, I've gotta have this thing in here. I love fling spells. Those are also, because its power matters, But it's 3 colorless and 2 red for a 4/6. And whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, it deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. However, if that creature was a giant, double the damage. Hell yeah. Love it. I love fling effects. Doubling a fling effect, and it's repeatable. I'm on board. This is going to murder people and draw you some cards. Then we have Thundercloud Shaman, 3 colorless and 2 red for a 4/4 giant shaman. And when he enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to the number of giants you control to each non-giant creature. And that's just a really, really good way to clear the board, draw a bunch of cards. Hopefully you don't deck yourself out, but that is part of the drug that is blue and card draw and commander is will I mill myself out? Who knows? These are also giant payoffs, but I think they're splashy enough that I wanted to have them set up in their own finisher category. Some of our biggest, splashiest things we can do with our giant payoffs are Sunrise Sovereign, which is 5 colors and a red for a giant warrior. He's a 5/5, and other giants you control get +2/+2 and trample. It's not as... It's no Craterhoof or anything Craterhoof like. But if we have a fair amount of giants on board, like 4 or 5 of them, giving all of them 2/2 and trample is pretty bad news bears for the rest of the table. So it shouldn't be at least enough to keep you protected or to break through somebody and start drawing some cards, maybe getting some other answers for a sweeper if you're like in a lock somewhere. A big hitter, though, is Borderland Behemoth. At 5 colorless, 2 red for a 4/4 with trample, and it gets +4/+4 for each other giant you control. And that's just bonkers. Like, you only need 1 giant with this for it to be an alright creature that is a 7-drop for that's an 8/8 with trample. But as soon as you have just 3 giants on board, it's a 12/12. Love it. That will kill people. And that's fun. Don't come after me, algorithm. It's in the context of Commander. Yeah. Anyway. So the types of excess damage that this deck really kind of focuses on, I was trying to figure out how to go over all of these without just simply reading like 30 burn spells, which is just boring. So there's a bunch that are very similar. So we have Basalt Ravager, which is a 3 colorless and a red for a 4/2. When it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to any target, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. This is kind of Giants Matters, but it's mostly just like, it's burn. Generic burn spells. We have all kinds of manner of burn spells to knock stuff out. Hopefully you'll hit a creature for excess based on some of our things that can make things deal more damage and such. And you'll draw a card off of it too. Another way to do it, as I talked about before, we have Follow the Hammer, which is colorless and red for an instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. There's lots of stuff in this deck that focuses on the power of stuff mattering and helping. Either turning it into damage or reducing costs, stuff like that. We have Jaya's Immolating Inferno. I know I talked about burn, but this is like more like, this is very big burn. Because we have a few of these ways to do like huge damage, and this hits multiple creatures to draw multiple cards. It's 2 colorless. No, I can read. I promise. It's 2 red and X. It's a legendary sorcery, so you have to have a legendary creature in play to cast it, but you really don't want to drop this without our guy on board, so you're going to. And Jaya's Immolating Inferno deals X damage up to 3 targets. So you can definitely make sure to draw 3 cards off this thing. And then finally, as I've mentioned before with a few other sweepers, we just have big damage to the whole board so that we can get a lot of draw power off of that. Draw a bunch of cards off of it. And I gotta be real, like, that's the deck with all the draw kind of plays itself a little bit. There's a lot to explore of ways to play with Agar. He's hyper budget. Well, alright. Kind of a spoiler for the next video. Kind of a spoiler. I can just talk about what's coming up next. I watched Card Market Magic do like this really hyper budget game where like all of their decks are $2, and I really wanted to post this budget deck, but I think next I really want to tackle building a hyper budget deck that is. I don't know if I'm gonna go $2. I'm gonna try, but if cutting cards is frankly too difficult, I might go 5. But like still, I want to be single digits at least. Because that seems fascinating. Because to me, like I was like, $20 for a commander deck, that's fine, that's great. I can do that. It's not a big deal. But like, the idea of getting it under $10, that sounds sick. I would love to do that, and that could be, depending on how fun that would be to brew, which I'm sure it would be because it's a bunch of cards I wouldn't know. That might be like a whole separate thing, like hyper budget brews, which I'd like to maybe work on. That'd be fun. That's going to be it. Be excellent to one another and have a good one.